Jerry.
What?
Hey, are you gonna let everybody hear the news? The big news we've got?
No.
Come on. Let it out of the bag. Let everybody know.
Come on. Let it out of the bag. Let everybody know. Fine. I am really ecstatic and honored to announce that next week, Sundance DiGiovanni, the Chief Executive Officer of Major League Gaming, will be on the Losers Bracket, and he'll be here to talk about all things Major League Gaming. So there you go. There you have your news. Can we now get back to this podcast? Because we've got great stuff to talk about. Halo Reach, the Combine, what the future of the Combines might be, and more information about Combines. Let's start the Losers Bracket.
Can't stop the train, baby. Woo!
My pleasure to welcome you to the 35th round of the Losers Bracket, and boy, is there a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we got quite the show going on for everybody today. We're going to be talking about a ton of Halo today. With Reach coming out last week, we've all had the chance to play it through quite a bit at this point, so just in a little bit we'll be talking about some news with MLG, like normal, lots of MLG news. But this stuff might surprise you a little bit, so you definitely want to stay tuned and listen to what's coming up. First things first, Halo Reach. Look at all the events that are coming up for this game. It already looks like this is going to be a hell of a competitive title. Wouldn't you agree?
You have no idea. There's so much money is being thrown for the tournaments in this game, and honestly, there's no real settings for it yet, which is a little disappointing because I thought they would have it a week after the release date of Reach. I'm talking about MLG settings, by the way, everyone, because I believe a lot of the tournaments get their settings based off of that. But for now, we're just using GB settings and testing the MLG settings.
It's really interesting, especially considering that DC is less than a month away, that the players that are going to be playing at DC don't even have rules to really be practicing for yet. So I think that's pretty interesting. But if you look, things like what Game Battles is doing right now, Dr. Pepper is holding a $10,000 team ladder on there. So yeah, definitely a lot of money being thrown at this, and I can't wait to see what the league settings that MLG does come out with look like, because I think that's going to really determine how the shape of this game turns out.
Exactly.
You know, with all that being said, I think we're going to need to break down exactly what's going on in D.C. and Dallas for the audience. So, Justin, let's start with Washington, D.C. If I understand it correctly, there's going to be a Halo 3 Pro Circuit event, and there's going to be a Halo Reach Combine in Washington, D.C. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can a team play in both the Halo 3 event and play in the Combine, or can you only choose one?
Technically, there is no rule saying you can't unless you're a pro player. So I guess you could, but I think scheduling-wise, it would interfere. So I don't think you'd be able to handle both.
I imagine a lot of players are going to go to DC, play Halo Reach, get their hands on it, get some Combine points, but really none of that is as important as what's going to happen in Dallas, correct?
That is correct.
Break down the points for everybody so they know what's going to happen leading into the Dallas event, and then explain how Dallas affects the 2011 season.
Leading into Dallas, the way this will work for points-wise, anyone that's achieved Pro Circuit points for the regular Pro Circuit events will be seated at the top. So this is going to be a 4-block system. So at the top, we're going to have the Pro Circuit points. Just after that, the second block will be anyone that's achieved Combine points, because Pro Circuit points are way greater than the Combine points do. So anyone that's attended a Combine, Nashville, Chicago, Denver, any of those points will be there. Anyone that's received online Pro Circuit points, meaning Game Battles points for live events, they will be seated in the third block, just underneath Combine. Then
and to be clear, that is what Major League Gaming is doing with their online Halo Reach MLG Dallas tournament, correct?
That is correct.
So if someone has not played Halo Reach all year, their best chance at getting seeding points is to compete at the online Halo Reach tournament, right? The online qualifier that starts, I think, rosters lock the 29th. So people have just over 6 days to get everything done.
If they don't want to spend money and go to DC, then the online would be the best way to get points. However, the way teams aren't really looking at this is that there will still be Halo 3 points that you can achieve, Pro Circuit points. The way it works is that 32 teams make it into the championship bracket at a regular Halo 3 event, which consists of up to 256 teams. Now, about 50 of those teams will receive Pro Circuit points. I think it's like winners round 6, you'll start receiving points, although it'll only be for winner 6 right around 2 points per player, 2 Pro Circuit points. However, if you go to DC wanting to play Halo 3, you might not play that well because you're going up against the pro teams right in the first round. However, if you're one of those 40 teams that gets a pass, you will automatically get Pro Circuit points, which will outweigh anyone that has Combine points and online Pro Circuit points. So the way that they could go about this, say I was a new team, I wanted to get points somehow. Since a lot of people aren't going to be going for Halo 3 because Reach is out for the Combine, I would get a Halo 3 team pass for DC. I would go in, probably get destroyed by one of the pro teams I'd match up against the first round. However, just for losing in the first round, I could not win a game. I'd walk out of there with at least 2 Pro Circuit points events.
Which
So
counts higher than the Combine points.
Count higher than Combine and online Pro Circuit points, which means for Dallas, going into Dallas, I would have a nice seed going into that.
Go ahead and explain Dallas for everybody now. What's going on in Dallas and how does that affect? Because now in Dallas we have the Halo 3 Nationals, which is going to be the top 7 teams plus 1 that makes it into the national championships. And then we're going to have the Halo Reach big 256 exhibition tournament. Tell everybody about how that's going to work.
The way that'll work is, so those 8 teams that make it to the Nationals will play Halo 3. So they'll just be on their own fighting for $100,000. For the Reach side, those 9 through 16 pro teams that didn't make it to the national championship for Halo 3 will automatically be seeded. They won't be considered pro because it's a new game, but they'll get everything a pro team usually does for benefits-wise. So they'll receive their stipends, jerseys, stuff like that. But they'll be seated at the top. So they'll be going against the players that have no points whatsoever. So they'll have, I guess you could say, maybe a little bit easier bracket compared to some people. And then after that, it'll just go down by who has more points than everyone else. The top 8 finishers to the Reach exhibition in Dallas will be seeded 9 through 16 for the first MLG 2011 event, while those top 8 national championship Halo 3 teams will be seeded 1 through 8 because they're at a disadvantage of starting late.
That means at Washington, D.C., everybody has a very important choice to make. If you want to get an early start on Reach, meaning you want to play the game at LAN, you want to network with people playing Reach, you can be part of the Combine. On the other hand, if you want to get Pro Circuit points, then at DC you would want to play Halo 3. If you're going to go to Dallas, it sounds to me like playing Halo 3 might actually be to your advantage because of the points. If you're not going to Dallas, then it may be to your advantage to play Halo Reach on LAN and then get the experience with the game. Because I don't know about all of you, but I suspect that Halo Reach Combine is really going to be MLG's testing ground for whatever settings they come up with. And what they learn at the Combine for Reach in DC is probably going to have a major impact on what happens in Dallas and beyond.
I agree with pretty much that statement that, that these 2 events for this season for the Reach are going to be mainly the testing of their settings and to make sure it's all right. But, I mean, what Justin said where the pros are at a disadvantage coming in from Reach or coming in from Halo 3 because they're playing in the Nationals and don't have a chance to play Reach, it just sounds like maybe MLG rushed Reach too fast and maybe should have held off to the next season of it. Like, they could still have this Combine to test the settings and stuff. Just have everyone start off even on an even playing field again, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do that. Especially because yes, it is a Halo game, but it's still a different game. It's different box, different disc you have to put in. It should be coming on to a new game, kind of like what they did for Gears 2. They had an online tournament to seed 1 through 16 or 1 through 32 or whatever, and then everyone else comes in with whatever they had, and random seeding after that.
Well, what I think is like with these Halo 3 teams starting off as a disadvantage for next year, this also gives a huge break for amateurs, because now there's only going to be 8 teams that were pro playing in the Dallas exhibition, which means you could be seeing a lot of new AM teams arriving from out of the woodwork and going pro. Then again, for next season, some of these Halo 3 teams, pro teams now, might not be that great next year. Instinct could be a horrible team next year. Who knows? So we won't really know, and nobody will actually be considered pro next year on the first event. It won't be until the second event where they'll actually achieve their pro status.
No, I know, because they did the same thing for Gears of War 2. But they still got, pro benefits for Gears of War 2. I think the only thing they didn't get was the stipend, if my memory serves me correctly. I mean, you just still got to think about it, yes, the teams may not be that good. I guess it all depends on how MLG wants to run their tournaments. If they're going to do it where, the number 1 seeded team plays the worst seeded team of the tournament, I'm fine with whatever they do with the Halo 3 teams, the top 8 Halo 3 teams coming in for Reach seeded 1 through 8. If they're going to keep it the same settings of what they did for this year, where pretty much they only play, top 16 teams, and then they keep getting placement rounds, that's the only time I'll have a problem with it, because then you're just giving them a free pretty much buy into the top 32, even if they are terrible.
I think MLG is going to end up doing it where there will be no championship bracket right off the bat. I think everyone's going to start afresh in the amateur bracket and then just work their way up. But like I said, seeding is going to matter at that point. So these top 16 teams at that point are going to have a good advantage on a lot of these teams. From MLG's point of view, I think they're going to end up just starting everyone fresh come next year, first event, and then after that event, they'll have their pro teams, and then they'll start doing the constellations and all that stuff for the second event.
Well, I think at some level Major League Gaming is going to have to still support its pro players. So, I mean, it sounds to me like the fundamental logic that went into this is the Halo pros want to finish out the Halo 3 season, and that's understandable. So they're not going to have as much time for Reach, and if they do make a lot of time for Reach, it's going to affect their ability to win a lot of money at the Nationals, which, to be honest, it is a lot of money. And they're going to have confidence that they'll be able to adapt. And I do agree with you guys that Halo Reach is a very different game. I don't think it's just box and disc, and I'm not saying you meant that it's just box and disc, but it's definitely a different game. I like it a lot better than Halo 3 in many, many ways. Now, with that being said, I know a lot of Gears of War players are getting interested in Reach because it is a better game. So I think for a lot of people that want to get into competitive gaming, they're just coming to age, I think it's important for them to understand that DC is definitely a place where you have to make a very careful decision. If you are not going to Dallas, then I would definitely play Reach. If you are going to Dallas for the 256-man tournament, where you have a shot at breaking into the top 8 teams and getting that 9 through 16 seed, and remember that seeding, because MLG usually has the last season points count for something into the new season, that 9 through 16 seed is going to be a definite advantage going in. I expect we'll see a lot of movement, a lot of changes going on, but if you are going to go to Dallas and you are concerned about seeding and you think your team can stick together, then it might be better to play Halo 3 to get those seeding points, because as Justin pointed out earlier, a lot of teams are not going to be playing Halo 3, so you have a better chance at making it farther into the tournament and therefore getting some points, and those pro circuit points count higher than the combine points. We are going to talk some Call of Duty 4 on the PC with Black Ops coming up. We have today a very special guest, our very own VVV Cubed, Cody Thaw. Cody, welcome to the Losers Bracket. How are you?
I'm good. How's everyone doing?
I'm fantastic, Cody. Thanks a lot. I want to talk a little bit about Call of Duty because I think a lot of people follow Sagacity on and off, and your CEVO Pro season has just come to an end with a 4th place finish. Talk to us about this season.
Well, to start off this season, we had most of our returning members, Sparks, Syntax, me, and Frizz, and we had a 5th, TM, who is relatively new. After our first match, we realized that the roster we had wasn't really working out for us, and we were going to have to make some changes with the roster because Sparks wasn't very active and very committed at the time.
So give us a feeling for what you mean by not very active. Does Sparks just have a lot going on in his life?
After playing the game for 2 years, he kind of got tired of it, and everyone goes to the points where they get tired of playing, especially a game that's as repetitive as COD 4 over and over again, playing the same spots, the same maps. He just got tired of it, and it was time to make a change for him and get some breath of fresh air into the team.
So what did you guys do at that point?
We had met at Nerf 3 with our old roster, a player named Rusted, and he played really, really well, and most of us had known him around the community for a long time, and we shot the idea about picking him up as a scope, even though he hadn't done it for a while. We thought he was going to fit in well with the team, and we were right. It just took a while for us to get rolling in the season because we started off kind of slow, integrating him and skins into the lineup.
What was your record at the end of the season?
I believe our record was 6-3.
So it was a mixed season, but enough to get you into the playoffs. And then tell us your journey through the playoffs.
Yeah, we made the playoffs as the 4th seed, and so it was pretty high. After starting off 0-2, we finished really strong, so we had a lot of momentum going into the playoffs. Our first match was on backlot against Carnal Gaming, and we ended up winning that match 13-7, probably our easiest match of the season up to that point. After that, we moved on to play the number 1 team Loaded on Crash, and we played really well, and we lost, I believe, 13-11 to them. So it was a really close match. You know, a few nades land our way, a few nades don't kill us. You know, we might come out on top on that one. And then we played Area 51 team, but they ended up forfeiting to us out of the playoffs because of the roster issues and whatnot. We just finished playing our match last night against Carnal again on Crossfire, and they really surprised us. They played really well.
Now, if I'm correct, that's the first time that you've lost to Carnal, isn't it?
Yeah, we had faced them 3 times in the past 2 months, and we had beaten them all 3 times.
And then that last final time when it counts, they get to move on. So who does that leave left in the playoffs?
Right now it's Carnal Gaming, Psychological Gaming, and Loaded, who's awaiting for one of those 2 teams in the finals.
Who do you suspect is going to win? How do you think it's going to pan out?
Loaded's going to win. The way Carnal's going, though, I'm predicting Psychological Gaming should be in there, but you know, Carnal's had 2 upsets in a row against Just for Fame and us. They're playing really well. Even though Crossfire, the map they beat us on, was kind of a random map. It's not really one of the main maps that's played. It's luck sometimes when it comes down to it on that map.
My experience watching Crossfire has always been that it's very easy just because of where and how nades land, that it's pretty easy to have somebody have sort of a lucky nade toss. Just happened to be in that one spot at the wrong time. Is that how that final sort of match went down?
Well, we actually had a great attack. We had an 8-4 attack, which is above average. You usually you want to lead going into defense. So you want a good attacking side, and I thought we had a good enough attacking side to win, and it did kind of go down like that with the nades because on defense, we always started off the round 4v5, if not 3v5, because of a nade kill or a scope pick they had. But there's really no way around that because with that map, if you let the other team push up that far, and hold you that far back, you're going to lose a round anyways. So you got to hope that you don't get naded, really.
Well, what's next for your team? What are you guys still playing in, and what do you have upcoming?
We're about to start CGI playoffs right now. They start next week. We're 8-1 in that league with our only loss being to Loaded, and week 2 when we were going through that rough patch, and that was still a 13-10 loss. And then we have Nerve 4 coming up here in less than a month. October 10th is the date.
Tell everybody a little bit about Nerve, the LAN center, and what the event is.
Well, Nerve is this is the 4th one they've had, and it's just a small Call of Duty LAN. There's usually about 20 teams, if not 20 to 30 teams there, if not more. But it's just strictly for Call of Duty, so there's no boost there or anything. It's just there's 20 PCs and the teams play, and they give you the cash right there, then and there.
Well, a lot of people don't know much about Cubed. I think they've seen a lot of your video work and but tell everybody a little bit about yourself, school, life, for those who may not know who Cody Thaw is.
Right now, I'm just, besides playing games, I'm just working as a bank teller at Wells Fargo, and I should be finishing up school here this semester at UNLV.
You're at the University of Las Vegas, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Where are you from originally?
Born in Vegas, actually.
Awesome. And what are you majoring in?
History right now. With anybody, you switch it once or twice, 3 times, maybe 4.
Are you on a 5 or 6 year plan, or are you going to be out in how long do you think it's going to take to graduate?
I should be out with a full year, my bachelor's this semester, but gonna continue on and get a master's, I think, in it. We'll see.
Any ideas where you want to go to grad school yet?
I have no idea right now. I'm still at this stage where I still want to be young. I still want to be able to travel and do stuff. So I'm putting off actually completely growing up right now.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. Adulthood gets thrown upon you soon enough, so no sense in rushing it. Let's talk a little bit about Black Ops. It looks to me like Game Servers, our sponsors, is going to have private servers for the game, but this is sort of the odd year release. What do you think from what you've seen so far? What are your predictions about Black Ops? Optimistic? Do you have concerns for what you've seen? What are you thinking so far?
Well, like any Call of Duty player, everyone's usually optimistic about the next game coming out. But I think this one's a little bit different, considering all the circumstances that are going into this. With it being Treyarch's second game, they've learned a lot from their past game, but most people don't know World at War on the PC was a really bad game when it first came out. It really was. The movements were bad, the sound was bad, there was no record feature. But over the past year and a half, they've put so much effort into making that game playable. They've added COD TV, they fixed their sound issues, they've just supported the PC community, which was pretty much non-existent since Call of Duty 1, really. Because if it's not community done, then there's nothing going on. I do think that it's going to be different. I don't think that it's going to be a search and destroy game type competitively on the PC. I think it's going to be capture the flag or one of those game types, or maybe even a mix of the game types like what they do in Halo, which is they play 3 game types, but it's shorter games, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. What do you think is going to happen to the team after this is over? Are you guys all for certain moving on to Black Ops? Has anybody on the team said, you know what, I'm not going to play, not interested, I'm done after this? What are your expectations there?
That's something we've all talked about, but right now we're just focusing on what we have on our plate right now. The only person that said that they are done for sure is Syntax, but it's for different reasons, not because of the game, because he just needs something different. He needs to move on. He's older than the rest of us. He's actually 27, so he's the only one that said that he's actually done. Maybe Rusted or Alex will play StarCraft 2 for VVV. But I think the rest of us are going to stick together and we'll play with some sort of roster with me, Sparks, Frizz, Starbuck, maybe even Skins if he's not addicted to WoW.
Ouch. Who let him play WoW? Who did that?
Well, he's not playing WoW right now, but with that, Cataclysm or whatever that expansion pack is coming out, he might be stuck in his basement for a few weeks playing that, but it's a wait and see.
All right, Cody. Other than Call of Duty 4 for the PC, is there anything else you play on the side, and have you had a chance to play Halo Reach yet?
I've played all the games on the side. CSS Pugs, 1.6 Pugs, ESEA, played some Left 4 Dead. The only other game that I've really tried to play competitively online, though, was AVA. There was a little North American tournament that attracted a lot of teams since it was for 10 grand. And no, I have not had a chance to play Halo Reach. I'm not a very avid Xbox gamer or console gamer. I'm actually terrible with a controller. Girls usually beat me.
but of course but you are a beast at Call of Duty. How long have you been playing the Call of Duty series?
I have actually been playing the Call of Duty series since its release in 2003, starting with Call of Duty 1 back when I was a freshman in high school.
Woo, that's a win for me. I used to compete in Call of Duty original for the PC as well.
Oh, look at you guys. You both used to play Call of Duty when you were young people on the PC.
All right, my last question would be, now Bungie and Microsoft decided to bring Halo 2 years ago to the PC. Do you think if they bring Halo Reach to the PC that you might actually try it out and play?
To be honest, I don't know exactly how the gameplay works in Halo. There's a specific type of game that I like. I like the features that Call of Duty has. That's why I play it with the iron sighting and stuff like that. Like that 1.6 and Source don't really offer. So I'd have to actually play one of the Halo games to see the game type before I make any decision. But I mean, if there's a big tournament like MLG picks it up for PC or something, and there's a lot of money into it, obviously I'd have to really, really look into it, even if I wasn't as attracted to the game.
Well, that brings up an interesting question when you talk about iron sights and things like that. For a lot of console players, Call of Duty 4 was really popular, and it definitely had a huge following. And then, obviously the next great thing was Modern Warfare 2, which I think most of us can sort of agree was really not a competitive title at all. There were too many bugs, too many problems. And on the console it sort of survived, but on the PC, obviously without dedicated servers, true dedicated servers, there was much that could be done. So when I think about what makes Call of Duty special, and I look at Black Ops, it seems to have a lot of that, all in there. And it looks like, at least from what I can see, they're going to cater a little bit to the competitive community. Do you get that same feel about Black Ops?
Yeah, I do. I actually saw an interview with one of the developers, and he was strictly there to talk about PC, and their team's strictly about PC, and he was talking about it and the way that they're going to support this game, especially with all the money they said they were going to put into it, is incredible. If they just do it faster than they did in World at War, it'll be a really good game. The fact that they're giving us our mod tools and, the servers, which it can be community run at that point, so we don't have to rely on them as much, but it'll be even better that they're helping us. It'll be great if they add Call of Duty TV to it too, because that was a really big thing in COD 1 when it happened in the original COD.
Well, the one thing I really enjoy so far about Black Ops, from a competitive standpoint, at least for console, is seeing that Treyarch's been working with Sundance and MLG to try to get this thing competitive. It just kind of shows that they're trying to focus on that competitive nature of all the players.
Yeah, I think you have sort of two things going on there. At one level, on the console side, turning to MLG, and then on the PC side, understanding the value of community and making sure that the community has the tools to sort of, set their settings and run tournaments the way they want. I don't know. I don't think they can do worse than Modern Warfare 2, to be honest. I think this could actually be a good game for both the console and the PC.
They had actually tried to do that, at least in Europe, with Modern Warfare 2. I don't know if you've heard of the I-Series lands in England. I think they're on I-41 now. But I think for I-38 or I-39, I'm not sure which one, they tried. I think Activision forced them to actually have that game there as a event. And they threw a lot of money at it, but it just didn't work out because the game was so bad.
Yeah, I think I did hear something about that. You're right, it was I-Series. And, it was one of those things, not so much forced them to, but, kind of gave them an offer they couldn't refuse with what Activision was willing to do. And at the end, all it really proved was the game wasn't landable. So, again, there was just a huge disconnect between Activision, the publisher, and the community, where at least with the developers for Black Ops, I think they have a much better feel of where the competitive community lives, what they're looking for, what they want, and what allows the game to be competitive, which I think is something we all look forward to.
Cody, I want to give you a big thanks for coming on the show today and sharing your experiences in gaming. Before you go, though, are there any shout-outs that you want to throw out to the community? Anybody that you want to say hi to? Anybody that you want to give a shout-out to?
Well, first I'd like to, give a shout-out to my team, and thanks for letting me experiment with this roster and me taking it over. Everyone should look for 2 movies that I'm actually making right now. One full one of myself solely, and one of the VVV team following Sagacity through all the seasons, including Nerf 4, all the way Zevo P, CGI, Nerf 4. Expect some real life footage too from Nerf 4, hopefully. So that'll be fun. You can follow me on YouTube. My username is VexCubed, or you can just message me on the forums.
A lot of activity from Sundance, the CEO of Major League Gaming, over the past couple of weeks. And I think there are 2 important things that are right now on the minds of a lot of players. The first thing is Sundance reaching out to the Gears of War community and to Cliffy B saying, what can we do to make Gears of War LAN compatible? And he pointed Cliffy B to a thread written by one of the Gears of War community members. And he said, I'm willing to reach out to Epic and work with you guys to make sure that Gears of War 3 meets what we need in order for it to be a competitive title. And it appeared Cliffy B was interested. That's the first piece of interesting news. The second thing, and something I really want to talk about, is I think Sundance has come to the conclusion that combines as separate events don't work, but obviously they have a great relationship with Doritos, and they still would like to see Dorito combines, kind of the model that's being used in DC, where there's both a combine and a pro circuit event. And he asked, what can we do to make combines work, which I thought was a very difficult question. So I thought I'd, ask you guys to get your input. What do you guys think?
Here's a really simple suggestion that I think would have a huge impact on MLG events and possible combine events in the future. Why not start out next season, the very first event, having a combine for games that they've never put on the pro circuit? This way they could get rankings for starting a pro circuit on certain games, testing out games to see if they would run well with the community at MLG, if they could get crowds for it. This way they wouldn't be putting too much into one pot if it didn't return. They could basically use this as a testing ground for games. First thing that comes to my mind, and maybe it's because I have a huge backing in this genre of gaming, but imagine something like rhythm gaming. Guitar Hero 6 is coming out this year, in fact, next week, and that's going to be the biggest competitive title for Guitar Hero to date. Now, that of course is something MLG has never done in the past, except for side events. They have done side events at their little Hot Pocket stations. But why not do something like a Doritos Combine, where they could try to bring this in a bunch of players, see if they would respond to the community, see if they could make this work. And if it became a success, they could possibly work into adding a game that would bring them success onto the pro circuit as well. The combines could be used as a very effective testing ground for new material.
I really like that idea, but I was kind of going into more of the looking at it like the tennis pro circuit and the tennis season and stuff like that. I was thinking of combines as more of like for events that you can use to qualify teams to go to a pro circuit event, such as not anyone can just pay to go to a pro circuit event anymore. Make it so that you have to qualify for the event, and then, because obviously they have to invite a certain amount of teams. A certain amount of teams will have to be ranked in a certain tier of players, and then everyone else can go to these qualifying events to try and go to a pro circuit event, prove why they should be there, and then they can get into the rankings through that. Kind of like what tennis does, because a lot of upsets happen when players come from these qualifying events to the pro events because they're really hot from playing all the matches before, and they just keep going with the momentum that they got for winning the qualifying or placing top 4 in the qualifying.
Yeah, but I think it's unrealistic to expect Major League Gaming to hold, that many events. I mean, the money's just not there.
No, I know.
I think Sundance made it clear on Twitter that he wanted 6 events, and that 6 events were going to be the key. And if that's what we're going to do, and we're going to go with 6 events, let's kind of focus on what can we do at a combine / pro circuit event. How does the combine fit in? Because I think that's really the deep question. Should it be that combine sort of happens first and then the top players move into a pro circuit? I think that would change the flavor of Major League Gaming. I just don't know if combines could survive. Jason brings up an interesting point as a testing ground, but I think about what a combine is in football and what the word means and what the model is, and I'm just wondering, how would that model actually work at an event? And the only way I can see it working is if you almost start everybody out in the combine and they have to move into a pro circuit event after they do, this good.
I kind of like that model too, because that way everyone's proving why they should be in the pro circuit instead of just coming from the season before with points.
If Doritos is the one covering these combines and they're the one paying for it, I know MLG's discussed this before, how hard it would be to extend events, but if Doritos is willing to pay, instead of having separate events, see if they could extend the MLG Pro Circuit events by maybe a day. So instead of starting Friday afternoon, you'd start Thursday. And then for that Thursday and into Friday, you could cover the amateur side of it, like the combine. And then those teams could also purchase a pass for the next event, which would be in the same venue. But, therefore they could also have all the pros review people They could have more activity going on with pro players, checking out new players. Because these combines have proved very influential to pro teams. I mean, look at a really good noob. He's now on a top 12 team with Darkest Hour. And, Adrenaline almost got picked up by Darkest Hour as well when, they couldn't find Legend. They didn't know where he was. And then you have, Power, and you have Amish Acorns, and all these players that were doing really well at Combine that really stood out at Pro Circuit events. So I think if they could, add on a day to the event, or maybe two. Who knows? Maybe Doritos could afford two.
The only problem with extending it days is if it's during the school year, obviously, and jobs for people who have to work to obviously be able to do this.
MLG has discussed that with us before for the pro players. But the thing is also, people are missing school and work now as it is anyway. A lot of people show up on a Wednesday or maybe Thursday. And very rare do you see people showing up on Fridays because they're afraid that they'll miss, sign-ups and stuff. So, I mean, extending it by a day, I wouldn't see it being too bad, honestly. But people miss enough school and work as is.
No, I agree. But right now, the tournament starts on Friday, right? And they don't want to miss sign-ups. So that means they're going to pretty much take a whole week off because you say people show up Wednesdays and Thursdays for an event that starts Fridays. So if it starts Wednesday or Thursday, they're going to show up on Mondays or Tuesdays, giving up a whole week of school or work, and you run into a huge problem with people leaving when they shouldn't, getting fired for leaving work, not giving enough time of advance. Some people can get away with a day or two, but a whole week is a little harder to do.
Well, giving enough time wouldn't be an issue because, I mean, we're well aware of these events months before the event happens. But like I said, a lot of these teams, a lot of players now still go out to LAN with their team before the event. So they'll spend an extra week off of work and school to go do this. From a financial standpoint for MLG, I think if they're willing to work with Doritos and doing that, I wouldn't see a problem. I wouldn't see too much of an issue or low attendance problem because I think, more players would show up if that was the case.
Well, like Jerry said, when he thinks of NFL and Combine, it's, athletes coming from the college world to show pro scouts and stuff like that what skills they have. Is there a way to have it where the pros, they set up, different events for the Combine where, amateurs can come in and show what they have? Say, maybe a headshot challenge, something like that, sniper skills, knowledge of maps, locking down maps, anything like that, just to show, skill sets of what they have. That way they can work their way onto, a team for the Pro Circuit event.
Yeah, but, the problem with that is that I'm not so sure that that's really how it works. The problem that we have here, and I really want you guys to think about this, if you're not watching a player every game and every match, it's really difficult. It's all word of mouth. And I think we need to get rid of that sort of word of mouth bullshit, to be honest, just pure bullshit, right? Oh my God, I have heard so much shit about players over the years, and when I actually watch them consistently, people will talk about one clutch headshot, but actually that player, they have not really done shit to help his team very much. And at the end of the day, someone will say, why don't you like this player? I'll say because they're not a team player. You're never going to see them win an event, right? Because they just don't get what it is to play at the top. They might have some sick skills, but they're not team players, right? And people often say, well, you can teach that. Actually, that's sometimes some of the hardest stuff to teach is to break that attitude and refocus a player not on their kills, not on their kill-death ratio, not on, how sick their shots are, but actually on understanding what the tactical situation is, what needs to be done to win the match. What I think the challenge to Major League Gaming is that you can't have a Combine event at a Pro Circuit event unless you make the whole structure work hand in hand. All this fluffy kind of bullshit pros will scout you out, all this will happen. I don't really think that's necessarily true. What you're getting out of it is what MLG is going to ask the pro players to blog about who they think is a rising star. Well, how much of that's going to be word of mouth? I mean, you got to kind of cut through the fluff and all the bullshit, and you got to really take this seriously because 2011 could be a big year for Major League Gaming if they do it right. And I think from a business perspective, I respect the fact that they probably have a good relationship with Doritos and they want to continue it, but I think Sundance is asking because it's a real challenge. How do you make it work?
It is tough.
Well, that's the other thing is if you have it, the Combine the day before the regular event, all the pros would be able to I know that before back in 2006, pros used to have a schedule they'd have to follow, doing, meet and greets and stuff like that. They could do that with the Combine. They could, get the pros more involved with the amateurs. Regular Combine now only has about 4 or 5 pros show up to scout people. If you had it before an event, like the day before the event, you'd have pretty much all the pros there, and all the pros can walk around scouting people.
I still think that everybody's thinking about this the wrong way. I think that maybe potentially the problem is just the word combine. I think that this is the perfect opportunity for MLG to branch out in new directions, possibly something aside from just the fighting games and the shooting games that we've seen in the past. This is the perfect opportunity for them to really expand out into new genres and tackle new complete segments of the competitive gaming market. If they possibly even renamed it from something like maybe Training Ground, or something that it's just kind of gives the appearance of something new, something that's coming in the future for MLG, something they want to test out. I think that really is the direction that the Combine should go. Sure, they could still have people that are playing amateur titles, like if they wanted to do a Halo or maybe a Gears of War 3 when that comes out. They could have people training for when to become a pro at those events as well. But I think that branching out in new directions is definitely something that MLG would greatly benefit from.
Jason, I'm beginning to start to come on your side on this. Imagine, if everybody will, that combines are not for pro circuit titles, but they're for different titles.
Yeah,
that's
I
an
can see
interesting
that.
idea.
No,
Exactly.
I can see that, because if you had, let's say MLG decided to pick up Guitar Hero for a Combine. Combines don't dish out money. There's no sponsors involved with it. What are the odds that these pro Guitar Hero players are going to come to the event just to win a Combine?
I think, Justin, that if they want to see it on the pro circuit, they have to come to the Combines and demonstrate. Now that I think about and I want to add to this, I would love, because, when you look at the business of what VV Gaming does, we are, for many competitive players, a place where they come to first encounter a real sponsor. And part of what we do is teach players how to act properly, how to properly represent. And it's a real challenge. And combines could be helpful for potential future titles. People would get to spectate. There would be a cross-pollination of genres, meaning, people that may not normally be exposed to rhythm gaming can watch and see what goes into it. And it'll give MLG staff and their crew a chance to interact with some of these top players and start to examine, why is Guitar Hero played competitively? What would it look like if we added Heroes of North or League of Legends to our PC games? Or, what if we picked up Medal of Honor? Those are just examples. But without there being a clear forced divide between Pro Circuit and Combine, I really, in my mind, can't figure out why somebody would go to a Combine event unless they're just trying to take a long shot at winning and be the best at that tier. That's why I'm interested in sort of Jason's idea. But what were you going to say, Justin? It sounded like you said no, I disagree.
Like I said before, what are the odds that these pro players are going to show up for other games to just play Combine? With Halo now, where the Combines, it's not just, the top team that gets the sponsorship to the next event. Top team and the wild card winners and the FFA winners. But with that, like I said, a lot of potential has come out of these Combines. You've seen a lot of new players arise. Amish Acorns, for a matter of fact, not a lot of people really knew who he was. And then Combines started coming around, and then people started pointing him out. Like I said, if they wanted to try out different titles, FIFA or Guitar Hero and stuff like that, I wouldn't see as much competition showing up, mainly because there's nothing there to win.
I disagree with that. I think that this would be the perfect way for them to bring people in, get them talking about potential events in the future, even if they only offer minimal prizes, and they were just saying, hey, this is what we want to do for the future. We want to test these games out. This is the perfect way to bring in people to get events going bigger and bigger and bigger. I can tell you from experience just at MLG Orlando, with some of the side events that they had, tons of people crowded around just for a chance to play on one station. There was Guitar Hero 5, there was Mario Kart, there was Wii Sports, there was Modern Warfare 2, and all these games were there just to play as an exhibition. And people loved it. There was actually something for the crowd to do. This could also be something to give spectators something to do. If these are being held at the same events as the pro events, whatever you want to call this, Combine or not, I think that this is the perfect way for MLG to branch out and expand. Instead of, people like saying, oh, well, I'm just going to go watch, they could have fun and play something too. Even if it's just minimal prizes, it really increases interest and it branches out to all different forms of competitive gaming instead of just shooting and fighting.
But with that, not a lot of people think like that. A lot of the players, a good percentage of them, are all about the money. If there's no money involved, what's the point of going? It's what a lot of people think about. Because this is money they have to dish out of their own pockets just to win a tournament, just for pretty much bragging rights.
To be honest, a lot of Halo players go to Halo and they never win any money. So I don't think it's all about just the money. I mean, I think people say that, but I mean, even at Devastation, a ton of Guitar Hero players showed up, and I think the top prize was only $500. Is that right, Jason? Does that sound right?
Even less. It was, I believe, the top prize came out to be like $150, and we had a ton of the top players in the nation come out, and it was only because it was a really well-run event, and we knew who all was going to be there. We came out to have a good time, to enjoy the company of the top pros in the nation, and to enjoy an event that was going to be well run, and we love competition. So if there was going to be, let's say, even a 128 person bracket, which is, quite a bit for, like say, a Guitar Hero event, I could see the entire Score Hero community coming out for something like that, just because we never get tournaments to that caliber except, hey, the World Cyber Games once a year.
You know what? There might be a no-brainer here. Another thing that Sundance tweeted about was who should he talk at the World Cyber Games for a partnership. What if Major League Gaming used the Combines as a way to mirror some of the games that the World Cyber Games has, so that we have a much more direct input into what the world is playing, so that we don't end up having, us choose between two leagues, but Major League Gaming talks to the World Cyber Games, says, we want Halo in the World Cyber Games, which would be a no-brainer, and Gears of War, which would be a no-brainer, right? World Cyber Games could do this. They've already got StarCraft 2 at MLG. Then maybe they could have combines for, let's say, Black Ops. As Cody said earlier today, Black Ops sounds like a game that could be really good. Well, maybe that would be something that we would do a combine for, so that Major League Gaming thinks about what is going on at the world stage to not only attract North American players to some of the world titles, but more importantly, gets European, Asian, global players from all the continents to look at Major League Gaming as a potential global stop. Because I'll be honest with you, the one thing that has developed esports in Europe is not only the fact that they've got this huge advantage of geography. I mean, you're talking about Western Europe, which, isn't that much space and travel isn't expensive compared to what we have to go through. But it'll be interesting to see, at least from my perspective, what European and Asian teams can afford to come here. So the combines might be the way to align both Major League Gaming and the World Cyber Games.
Speaking of no-brainers, I mean, when you bring up the idea of Major League Gaming and WCG possibly working together, possibly putting together a partnership, imagine, if you will, in a world where these two companies have formed a partnership, if something like a combine was used to double as qualifying for the WCG Nationals. That is a possibility. Imagine, say, instead of the WCG Invitational that's been held in the past couple of years, that instead anybody could go to one of these combines, sign up for the chance, and if they win, they reserve a spot for themselves at the Nationals to play for a national title at the WCG and represent Team USA at some tournament somewhere in the world for the grand finals. That would be absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. I think each league could legitimize each other. The World Cyber Games looks in many ways to ESL in Europe for a lot of things. It should be able to look to Major League Gaming as a definitive source for North American esports. And I'm serious when I say this. My first conversation with Sundance, I definitely can 100% say the impression that I got from the phone conversation is he is 100% sincere and passionate about what he's doing. And with Bromberg and the rest of that AOL Flunky crew gone, and with Mike Sepso really doing his own thing also with Legion Enterprises, the private equity firm. Sundance is the man. He is the one now running the show. He is the face of the organization, and I think he's really ramping up his own game, to be honest. I mean, it takes a lot of time and energy to reach out to a ton of people, and I know this probably better than a lot of people. It takes a lot of time and energy. The phone calls, the meetings, the conversations, and he's been at Dell. He has been talking to other potential sponsors, and I think he's realizing, you know what, I really need to reach out to all the players in this field and put something together. So, we just dedicated time on this show to talk about combines. If Sundance ever has any other questions, him and I are going to be basically chatting once a month just to give each other an update. And, I think all these things point to hopefully a lot of gamers coming up with creative solutions. I'll say this. I've said it about the old PC community. I'm going to say this to people who play Halo. The things that you think are important today are not going to be important tomorrow. Things are changing, and they're changing very quickly. And it's more or less about inexpensive trial and error to figure out what works. And anybody who wants to come and say, that's not how it used to be done, I'm going to make this one very clear point. If you're a young person and you don't like change, I am very sympathetic, because the world always changes. And the way technology and information is moving, we're going to see the rate of change increase. So if you're someone who is uncomfortable with change, I hope somebody sits down to you and says the only thing consistent is change. You're going to need to get used to it. And I think right now it looks like Sundance is changing Major League Gaming in the right direction. And if everybody who he reaches out to greets Sundance with a clean slate and open arms, Paul Brewer, Cliffy B, anyone else that reaches out to Sundance, gives it a clean slate and says, okay, let's start all over again, let's hit the reset button, then we will all benefit. VV Gaming has hit the reset button. After my conversation with Sundance, I am very confident that it is well worth everyone to start with a clean slate, make sincere, thoughtful suggestions, and understand that anybody between Sundance and the community who has acted like a block before or who has squelched good ideas, those are not the people you have to worry about, because I feel Sundance is involved and he cares and he's passionate. And I've said it in my open letter, this may be our last best hope, and I think all of us could benefit if we're sincere and open in our dealings, and that's what I hope for.
Whew, that was quite the action-packed round we had for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed our conversations about combines and our interview with Mr. Cody Thaw, VUV Cubed. Big thanks to the VUV sponsors, SteelSeries, Control Freak, MusicSkins.com, and Custom Ink. We also have to say a big thank you to the VUV community for their feedback and support on our shows. Huge thanks. Be sure to stop over at our site, vuvgaming.podbean.com. That way you can follow both of our shows, Directional Influence, our Smash Brothers podcast, and this show that you're listening to right now, The Losers Bracket. You can also find us on iTunes. The feed is called VVV Gaming. Both of our podcasts are listed under there, so please check it out. Subscribe. Leave us some feedback. You can email us at thelosersbracket@vvv-gaming.com, or you can follow us on Twitter, where we are known as Losers Bracket.
We will see you next week. Thank you for listening.